What's up, addicts? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Wanted to have a quick chat with you guys. I was curious what your opinion on this subject is. I want to give my opinion and I want to see if you guys have a differing view in the comment section below. So, Dynasty Leagues. Obviously, that is the main action that's going on right now. Keeper leagues and redraft leagues. We're all just praying that there is even going to be a 2020 season for us to do anything with, but Dynasty leagues live on. We've got rookie drafts coming up here pretty soon. The NFL draft looks like it's still going to commence at the end of April as was originally scheduled, so Dynasty leagues live on. Now, in my Dynasty league, I've been doing a lot of trading. I think I mentioned that in my last Dynasty video, and I feel like I've encountered some different philosophies when it comes to Dynasty, and just curious, in terms of strategy, what do you guys typically see as the best approach? I mean, and this is going to differ based on your league mates, differ based on your ability to trade, your ability to sell out for the future, anything that comes along with that. But I feel like there is sentiment that you can basically sell. You should either sell all of your players and try to build up a team that you're going to be happy with in a few years. And then there's also the strategy of just selling out for now, even, basically future be damned, just make your team fantastic right now. And I feel like, obviously, again, you have to be very crafty in your strategy, but there has to be balance between those two things. Because creating a team that is solely focused on winning the championship this year, even if you're making trades in the middle of the season, that can still really come back to bite you. So like last year, if you found a way to trade for Derrick Henry right before the end of the season, right before your trade deadline, trying to just lock down that Super Bowl if you needed another running back, and you were able to convince the owner to let Derrick Henry go because he probably only has another season left with the Titans. Well, he got hurt in week 16. So I feel like the fallacy of selling out for a particular season ends up, coming back to bite you, especially if, you can't predict when players are going to get hurt. You can't predict when players are going to go off or just completely tank. I mean, we've seen, guys like Mike Evans have games where they only score 0 points, and then Mike Evans, also another guy that you may have tried to trade for last year and then ended up getting hurt before the season was over. Same thing with guys like Chris Godwin. So fantasy football has so many variables to it. Obviously, you want to try to build for depth, but if guys get hurt in week 16 and that's when your championship is, there's no amount of selling out for 1 year that can ever guarantee you success. It might give you a better chance. And in a redraft league, you're going to play a totally different strategy because you're going to lose the entire team. So why not go for broke? When it comes to Dynasty, if you go for broke and you lose, I feel like that leaves you in a really precarious spot. On the flip side, though, selling out, so like let's say you're looking at your team, you're like, I probably can't compete this year, so I'm just going to sell out for the future and try to get future draft picks and trade away any talent that I have and just try to stock up on future picks. Well, I feel like just doing a cursory review, not even a deep dive, into some of rookie draft ADPs over just like the last 5 years, while there obviously were some good picks, typically the first and usually the first 2 or 3 overall picks end up being pretty good. There's a lot of landmines, even in the first round. And selling your team out for the future in hopes that you can then amass a super team also requires you to be incredibly accurate in the picks that you made. And that is, I feel like that's also maybe a little less risky than selling out for 1 year, because at least you're gaining some capital that you can then try to trade around. But I'm just curious if you guys have found this strategy or either of these strategies to be successful for you. The way I like to approach it is I like to try to find a blend of the two. Obviously, you don't want to ignore the future because it's going to be here whether you like it or not. But at the same point, you have to compete now, because what's the point in playing in a fantasy league if you're not going to compete or try to win the title in that year? I mean, that's no fun. Playing a game with the intention of losing is just, that's just not the way I like to roll. So obviously that takes a lot of craftiness, and there's still luck involved, but trying to design a team that you're happy with your starting roster while also trying to acquire depth down the future requires a blending act. So having some older players on your team that you know only have a few years left but are doing pretty good in terms of fantasy production, while also bringing on guys that are either proven talents that are very young or guys that you project to be better overall. I mean, I think of names like Darius Geis is a name that comes to mind that a lot of people aren't selling right now because they're still very sold on him, but I feel like he's still a pretty good buy if you can find an owner that is a little bit nervous about his prospects. And that's a kind of guy that you could help shore up a team with some more seasoned veterans on there, because he's still incredibly young and hasn't really had a chance to be a starter yet because of all the injuries he's suffered. And granted, that could speak to his injury history as well, but we're not really talking too much about Darius Geis here. Just the general philosophy of blending your team with older guys and younger guys, knowing that the old guys won't give you an incredibly long lifetime value, but they're going to give you a better chance to win now, while at the same time shoring up your roster with some younger guys that will be able to take over in their stead. So I feel like that's the approach that you typically want to go for. And again, it's not always going to be possible, but in a dynasty league where your rosters don't reset, I just feel like doing one or the other extremes just has a lot of, you take on a lot of unnecessary risk, in my opinion. But again, really curious to see what some other people think. Obviously, I've only employed the balanced strategy in my time in Dynasty, and it's worked out pretty well for me thus far. But I'm curious to see what you guys think in terms of selling out for the future or selling out for 1 year. Have you had any success in that, and would you recommend it, or do you guys think that the more balanced approach ends up making more sense, or is there another approach altogether that I didn't even bring up? Obviously, I gave a really cursory overview. I'll probably do a breakdown of all the moves that I made in the offseason to kind of give you guys a glimpse into my kind of overall strategy and what I'm trying to build in terms of caring about the future and caring about 2020, again, assuming a 2020 season happens. So we'll do that video some point in the future if you guys are interested. But again, just curious to see what you guys have to say. So hit me up in the comment section below, and we'll see you in the next video.